I think it's like always just been like a bit of a compulsion, making up stories, writing, whatever it was. I think I just always have had this urge to create, find your tribe that believe in you and that you believe in as well, so that you can support each other.
Hi guys, welcome to Introe Verse. Today we are joined by our friend Toby, co-founder of Sounds Queer, part of Status Flow Collective, musician, model, all-around creative being. It's a pleasure to have you here today. Welcome.
To the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So your music has been described as, let me get this right, British soul with a modern indie overtone. How would you personally define your unique sound and style?
Like musically, who's just doing musically. It's quite, I've got a lot of different influence, like my Discover Weekly on Spotify has a personality complex, like if you were to listen to it, lots of different stuff in there. So I think there's lots of different influence in my head, but the way it all kind of tends to come out, I think, is like rooted in like soul, and soul music. I think that's the music that's always spoke to me, or music with soul, as opposed to soul just the genre. So like UK soul, but I'm a bit dramatic as well. So like I like a bit of like atmosphere. So I think anything like atmospheric, and I think because I'm quite a visual person, when I write, it's a really visual process for me as well. So it's like as I'm writing the song, I can see the video that accompanies it or the stage show, etc. So I feel like there's quite like I have a cinematic tendency to how I approach music. So like cinematic soul.
That's nice to hear. Can you share the story of how you embarked on this creative journey of yours? At what age and how you got there?
I think it's like always just been like a bit of a compulsion. That's how I describe it. It's kind of, so I don't really remember when it like started. It's always just been a part of what I've done and do. Whether that was like, I don't know, 5 years old, dragging my mum and dad into the living room to make them watch me do a dance routine to like Billy Piper or something like that, or just drawing, like making up stories, writing, whatever it was. I think I just always have had this urge to create. Yeah.
That's lovely.
I always find it interesting, like when, musicians or creatives in general are so like multidisciplinary, and kind of today you have to create a brand for yourself, right? If you're, a musician, but being able to, be kind of fluent in filmmaking and photography and everything like that adds to that. And how's that kind of like, how do you find that relationship?
I think it's like, it's part by like necessity. I think obviously the world we find ourselves in, like the modern kind of creative industries, I think there's much more of a need for individuals in order to succeed, whether that's as a musician or just as a freelancer, full stop, to be able to occupy different spaces. And I like speak different languages essentially. So depending on what role you're playing, or even if it's just down to like the bare bones of like just getting by and paying your rent. I think everyone, like when you're starting out, you really have to like be pulling lots of different strings,
side hustles,
spinning plates. And so I think it's like almost half and half. Like partly I think it's just like the way my creativity is that it occupies different spaces, and I think how I kind of have come to understand it is all through like the lens of like storytelling. So like
important,
whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it's like project, a photo project, or it's directing or writing a song or like a music video or whatever it is, I think the story is really important to me. And it's also what I really enjoy. I think that like element of creating a story or narrative is like, what kind of binds all of those things together for me. So it's like partly just the natural mode of being, and I was interested in all of these different fields, but then also I think just as a music artist, like part necessity, because you do have to, when you're trying to make inroads into the industry, kind of gone are the days where like you'd like play a show in a pub and some random dude would come up to you and give you a fucking record contract. Like, like that sounds lovely, but that's kind of gone. And so, or if it is happening, I'm definitely not aware of it. So I think you have to develop, like you say, either brand, following, audience, and the only way that you can really do that is by having output, which you have to then like promote. And so there's like creating visual content, so you're like a content creator, marketer, trying to come up with your own videos and directing things. And so I think it's like part necessity, but also I'm lucky that I was interested in those different creative fields, I think, as well.
They all go hand in hand together, with music especially.
So I roll with it, roll with it, roll with it, roll it up again, roll with it, I keep on rolling, roll with it, where will it end, roll with it, I roll with it, pieces just keep on rolling.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about Sounds Queer, and tell us about, I don't know, the importance of like creating a space, you know, focusing on queer people as well, of all sorts. Like, how important is that to be able to create that space for within the music realm?
Yeah, I think it didn't really dawn on me until it dawned on me that like that space just did not exist. And I think like my identity as an individual is like so heavily influenced by music and being a queer person, but there are like obviously club spaces, and look, the queers are great at the club.
They love a party.
I enjoy it very much. Or like there was this community around drag, and like drag having its sort of moment, and I was like, oh, and like that's a scene, but there was like not so much communication between like, or space for communication between like queer artists and queer audiences and platform. And also I think like the industry as a whole, like what queerness looks like was very like homogenous. For a while it's obviously got better, is getting better in some instances, like
Depending where you are as well, I feel.
yeah, exactly, depending where you are. But like tell that to someone in like rural, like wherever, like we live in metropolis, and so that experience can be very different. So even in London, that didn't really exist, and it just was spawned out of this conversation when we were like, where are like the queer live music nights, like where queer artists can play to queer audiences or audiences full of allies, which for me, again, it all comes back to like storytelling. So like music is a great vehicle, one of the best vehicles for like storytelling, social change often, and delivering messages. And I think if people don't have like platforms in order to do that, so take for example like the most marginalised from the queer community, are you really going to feel comfortable to get up on an open mic and like bare yourself and share your story?
Yeah.
Probably not. So that means that you're not like, you're
Being
already
heard.
like 10 steps behind.
Yep.
So by the time like you've figured out who the fuck you are, got the confidence to get up on
Yeah.
stage, like how many years does that take? Like
For
found
sure.
a space where you can like stand in
Yeah.
front, like a heteronormative space where most grassroots music kind of occurs, get up in that space and bare like your soul.
Yeah.
Like it just means that those stories are like
Yeah.
limited, and it's just like a massive barrier to access. So I think the whole idea behind it was to start creating this dialogue, or like begin to create community around live music and queerness, work with festivals and to provide platforms, also just performance opportunities as well, because I think queer people want to support queer artists
Yeah.
as well,
Sure.
but giving them the opportunity. So it's like this twofold thing. And knowing you're coming into a live music space and it's a safe space as the artist and as the audience. Like from one of our showcases, we had an artist who was like nervous beforehand, but like when I watched them perform, I'd never seen them perform like that.
Right.
And it was like the queerest version of themselves in performance, and it just was so amazing to watch this person who the scene that they're from is quite straight and like broy, to be honest with you. And they inhabited this space and their performance was so much more expansive.
Wow.
And they came back after and they're like, that was amazing. And so like having that feedback from that was just like, that's sort of why we started doing it.
100%. Where you can be like your
So
true,
proud.
genuine self. You know what I mean? For both artists and
Yeah,
audience.
and just
Amazing.
I think like the one condition is that you're not a dickhead.
Yeah,
Like
word.
come
Word.
into the space, have a nice time,
Yeah.
and like accept people's expression, whatever that looks like, and support.
Yeah.
Mister, can I have your attention, please? Yeah, won't you take some time to spend a bit on me?
I find it quite interesting how surrounding yourself with a creative network can actually be like a really useful tool in terms of like navigating like independent, being an independent artist.
Yeah, I think it's like beyond useful. It's like necessity in this current day and age, because especially with like elements of like gatekeeping and things like that, I think you can spend so long like being down here and going, please sir, can we like go on, just like a fiver record deal, please. And like kind of fuck that. Like actually, I think what I've come to realise since I went freelance a couple of years ago is that like even things like this is where it's at. And I think when people realise that actually the power is around them, the power of creativity and actually community and culture, because no record label, no matter how much, or big corporation, no matter how hard they try, can create culture. They can buy culture. They can maybe influence its growth, but in terms of like creating community and culture, it happens at grassroots, and it happens by collaborating with people around you.
For sure.
And supporting other people that you believe in. So I think I'm really lucky. I like people as well. I'm not one of those people that sometimes I hate people, but most of the time I'm like down to get to know people, and people interest me. And I'm especially like in creative circles as well. Like I love seeing people actualize things creatively, and I think it really interests me, like that side of things. So I think I'm lucky that I'm like surrounded by or know lots of amazing creative people, and I've like come to know them. And yeah, I think, like I said, it's like necessity. Like lots of the stuff that I've done in the last year, if I was trying to just do that solely by myself without like the support of like creative partner, like say my music and producer that I work with, shout out to Maverick West, who is really an intrinsic part of now my creating and my ability to tell stories in the way that I want to. If he wasn't a part of that journey, there's stuff I wouldn't have learned or wouldn't have created. And then I think it's like passing that on and also sharing that as well, because I think a lot of the time you can spend so long trying to figure out the answer for something when you're all by yourself. Whereas if there's someone sitting right next to you and you go, do you know what, I'm like really struggling with how to do this thing. And they'll be like, how long have you been thinking about that? And you're like, it's literally taken me a week. And then they give you the answer in like 5 minutes. And you're like, why was I making that so difficult?
Yeah, you can't
And so I
trap
think
yourself.
the collective mind, essentially,
Together we're stronger.
and shared knowledge.
One more thing. What advice would you give to emerging artists and photographers looking to make their mark in the industry, especially in the LGBTQIA plus community?
Collaborate. Yeah, I think, and work with other people, be outward facing. And I know that's hard because like obviously everyone has different levels of like not wanting to socially engage, but how challenging they find that. So like if you're more introvert, that can be more difficult. So I think there's like whatever your version of that is, but I think collaborating and building community, I think is a really strong start. Like find your tribe that believe in you and that you believe in as well, so that you can support each other.
That's amazing.
Kind of, I don't know, love songs are all like boy meets girl, they fall in love, blah 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 blah. That's nice, but like, wouldn't it be nice if there was like a male equivalent? So this one's called Mr. Mister. I hope you enjoy it.